Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Merck webinar on strategic frameworks. Thank you very much for joining us. This is episode 2. Last week, I went over an overview of strategic frameworks. If you weren't with us on that webinar, fear not, it is up on our website. You can go to merck.com and you can watch episode 1 of strategic frameworks. But basically what we did is we identified what a strategic framework was, how it worked, and what it is used for. And in this episode, what I will do is go into detail into a framework that is called TOWS, which is very similar to SWOT, but it takes it a step further. Now, as I like to do in the beginning of my webinars, I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me. So can you please, in your chat box, say yes if you can hear me clearly? Okay, good. Thank you very much. Okay, so I see at least 2 people can hear me, so hopefully that the webinar is working correctly. All right, so just to start out with what this webinar is about. The SWOT analysis is pretty old. It's about 60 years old, and it is still used today by organizations and strategists because it is quite helpful. It is an exciting exercise. However, the results are not always applicable. And this is where TOWS comes in. So what we want to do in this webinar is take our SWOT analysis, which I'll explain for those of you who haven't used it before, and push it a little bit further. So this webinar would take us about 45 minutes. And as I said, all of our webinars are recorded, and after a few days, you can see them on the website. So just very quickly, I know some of you have been with us on previous webinars before. So Merck Training and Consulting started in the 1950s. We're over 60 years old. We have trained over 3,000 clients, and we currently have a portfolio of over 300 courses in 26 different categories. For example, communication and writing skills, project management, planning and strategy. And we are closely associated with different associations like ILM, like Wiley, and the Project Management Institute. My name is Mohammed Nayal. I am a partner at Merck. I studied a very, very, very long time ago engineering, and I didn't like engineering very much, so I changed and went into business administration. And now I'm doing my doctorate in education. Training and education and learning is really a passion for me. My background, I've worked in consulting at McKinsey, in financial institutes like HSBC. I've also worked at the government of Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So what I would like you now to do is just register actually for this webinar, just enter in your name and email. I just want to know, I know that you've done that before, but I just want to know who actually is with us in our webinar. So what I will do is in the chat button, I am going to send you a link. If you could just please click on that link and enter in your name and email. So I will just give you a couple of minutes to do that. And then if you don't mind, in the chat, you can say done. Shouldn't take you more than a minute. Okay, thank you, Sayed. Okay, so I have 3 registrations so far. I'll just give you a couple of more minutes. If you please just enter in your name so we know who's here. Okay, Poonam, thank you very much. All right, I think most of you have done that. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, so let us begin. So what we're going to do today is we're going to discuss how to go from a SWOT analysis to a TOWS analysis. And if you haven't done SWOT before, that's okay. We will go through that quickly. So the first step that we're going to do is perform a SWOT analysis. Now, I just want to ask you here if you've used a SWOT analysis before, yes or no? I just want to get a feel of the room. So if you can go ahead and answer, please, on the poll. All right, I'll give you a 10 more seconds. All right, so let me share the results with you. Most of you haven't done it before. That's fine. That's absolutely okay. So what the SWOT analysis is, it's a strategic tool that was developed by Albert Humphrey a long time ago in the 60s and 70s. And what it stands for is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So you look at those 4 things for an organization, for a business, for a project, and it allows you to analyze your environment internally inside the company and externally. So you look at your strengths and weaknesses, and you also look at threats and opportunities that can come from outside. So this is what a SWOT matrix looks like. You look at your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and sometimes it's called risks also. So as an example, a strength of an industry could be that you have great people. You've hired really capable people. Maybe you have lots of finances, or you have a lot of assets. So this is something that the organization is very strong in. Weaknesses are, they're not criticisms, but they're more about, they're a set of factors, negative things that could hold you back from growing. So for example, is that you might not have very good cash flow, or that you don't have enough people. A lot of people that I talk to say that they're quite stressed out, they have a lot of work to do. And the first thing that I ask them is that, have you hired enough people? Or maybe your product is not of high quality. So all of those things that you have to put down. Opportunities are things that are outside, that they are the most valuable card in the SWOT analysis. These are actionable initiatives that you can take to grow your company, to make it more profitable, to make it more solid. So for example, there might be an opportunity. Let's say that you're working in Saudi Arabia, for example, you have an opportunity to expand into African countries, or you have an opportunity to produce a new product. The last thing is threats and risks, and these are things that could come from outside. So for example, there could be a new law. It could be a COVID-19, Corona, the pandemic is, or another pandemic that hits us in another 5 years or so. It could be a drop in the oil prices. So you have to list all of those things that could really impact your business. And what you would try to do is try to avoid those risks or mitigate them. So here is an example of a SWOT analysis for any company. So for example, this company has good experience, is very efficient, has high quality and reputation. Its weaknesses could be that it has certain knowledge that it doesn't have, and it doesn't have a very good cash flow. Maybe it has high turnover. The threats is loss of partnership, inflation, strong competitors, or competitors that come up with new technology. Whereas the opportunities is maybe a new strategic alliance, maybe a new product that it could develop, or it could import and export things, or it could come up with a new technology. So let's put this into practice. Let me take a company that all of you, I think, are well aware of. The fast food giant McDonald's. So let me ask you here, and I think I do have this poll. How many McDonald's locations do you think are around the world? Even if you don't know, just go ahead and answer without Googling it. I know some of you are already Googling it. All right, I'll give you another 10 seconds. Okay, so let me share the results with you. It's pretty good, actually. It's not, I mean, the correct answer, I think, is somewhere around 40,000. So if you put 50,000, that's fine. The idea is that McDonald's is huge. I mean, 40,000 branches or locations around the world is a very, very big number. So the question is now that we're going to do a SWOT analysis for McDonald's. So what I'd like you to do on your chat button is each person, if you could put one strength that McDonald's has. So one strength that you think McDonald's enjoys. And then I'll take some of them and put them on the screen. So the question is, what are some of the strengths that McDonald's had? Okay, very good. So we have good reputation, big brand in the market, quality. Okay, very good. Anyone else? I'd like to hear maybe from a couple of other people. All right, relatable, consistency in quality. Very good. Yes. I think consistency is a very important thing, that if you go to a McDonald's in the UAE, it's going to taste exactly the same as McDonald's, or a Big Mac in the UAE is the same as a Big Mac in Rome. It's the same as a Big Mac in New York. Okay, excellent. Very good. So we've listed some strengths, and I'm going to give you a potential answer after that. So here you list the strengths, and possibly people come up with 4 or 5, but really you need to dig a little bit deeper and try to figure out what are the strengths of the company. All right, so now as a harder one, what do you think the weaknesses of McDonald's are? So go ahead and write down some weaknesses. This is a harder one. Narrow menu, less choices. Okay, good. High price. All right. Limited range of products. What about taste? All right, an easier question. What about healthiness? McDonald's is very healthy, right? Junk food, yes. Very good. Excellent. All right. So it typically, I've found in my experience is that companies struggle with their weaknesses. Although as a strategist, if you're somebody who works in the strategy department, or if you're doing a SWOT analysis, it's really important to dig deep and know what are the weaknesses of your organizations, of your project, because what we want to do is we want to try to overcome them. Okay, so Dheeraj says competitors. Although competitors, I would say, something is an external perspective. Now, if you put competitors in weaknesses, that's fine. It doesn't matter, even though the correct place to put it is threats because it comes from outside. However, the SWOT analysis is just a piece of paper. It's a tool. As long as it's there, it doesn't matter where you put it. All right, so now we have two things left, opportunities and threats. What would you start with first, opportunities or threats? So just type in either O or T. Okay, opportunities from the Rizwan. Okay, opportunities. Yulia says threats. All right. Okay. Yulia, why do you say threats? I know it's, why did you say, because everybody says opportunities and that's what SWOT is. It's SWOT. Was there any specific reason you said threats? You said T. Because actually that's the correct answer. Even though it's called SWOT, but it doesn't sound good if you say SWTO. It sounds better if you say SWOT. The reason why you put threats first is because the most important box in this here, in the SWOT analysis, is our opportunities. And everything should go into opportunities. Yes, very good. Yulia was saying is that I will work out opportunity based on above. Excellent. Very good. Now, of course, if you start out with opportunities first and then do threats, it's fine. But this is one weakness of the SWOT analysis, is because at the end, what you want to make sure is that you have something that's actionable, that you can use. And opportunities is the only one where you can actually use. So here is an example, a potential solution for McDonald's SWOT. So for example, it ranks very high on Fortune magazine, has global operations. One of the things that is a big strength of McDonald's is it has excellent locations. It actually has a huge department that goes out and looks, and they've made a science out of finding out where the best location is. They look at all these different things, the flow of traffic, how people can see them from outside, how easy is it to get to, how easy it is to leave. Now, the weaknesses are, one of the things that people don't know about McDonald's is that it has a very high turnover rate, even higher than some of their competitors. Any guesses on how many people, what the percentage of people that leave every year is? Type up a percent, 5%, 10%, whatever you think. Any guesses? So McDonald's has 5% or less. Very good. Yeah, so you would think that although it's more 40% or higher, they have very high training costs. Lots of people leave also because they pay minimum wage. So unhealthy food, like everybody said, junk food. Now, threats. So that's what we start out with, because in the opportunities, we want to make sure that we are countering all threats. So for example, threats is that if you have lawsuits for offering unhealthy food, or if somebody gets food poisoning at one McDonald's, everybody else in the world would focus on it. Or that people are starting to focus more and more on healthier diets. Or maybe you have a downturn in the economy and people can't afford to go out anymore. Now, here are some opportunities. You could look, McDonald's could look at opening more joint ventures. They have Wi-Fi services in their branches that they could advertise. Teenagers love that. They could go into different parts of the world. There's a lot of places in Africa they could probably go to, or they could start offering some healthy food, some things like gluten-free menu, for example, for people who have allergies. So that's very quickly how you would do a SWOT analysis. And like I said, the SWOT analysis is a very good tool. But what we want to do is we want to push our thinking further. So in the TOWS analysis, what we do is, first of all, we do the SWOT, and then we do the TOWS. And the TOWS looks very similar to a SWOT analysis. Now, this was developed by an American professor. His name is Heinz Wietrich, and it's a variant on the SWOT analysis. It looks at the external opportunities and threats and compares them to strengths and weaknesses to come up with actionable things. What you want at the end is you want a list of things to do to make sure that those risks and threats don't impact you, but also that you're taking advantage of all the different opportunities. So this is what a TOWS analysis looks like. It looks at strengths and weaknesses, and it puts them up here. And then it looks at opportunities and threats. And then it says that you have SO strategies, which means strengths, opportunities. And this is called maxi-maxi. So what this is what can I do? How can I use my internal strengths to take advantage of any external opportunities? And then you go to weaknesses and you do WO strategies. So that's the mini-maxi. And this is, how do I take advantage of opportunities to make sure that I can offset any weaknesses? So if McDonald's has high turnover, is there an opportunity, something that I can do to make sure that I don't have high turnover? Then you go to ST strategies, which is basically strengths and threats. And here what you're doing is you're using strengths to minimize threats. And the last thing is your weaknesses, threats, your double T strategies. And this is the hardest one. This is the mini. So here is basically, what are your strategies going to be to minimize weaknesses and external strengths? So maybe you don't have an external threat. So maybe you don't have strengths and you don't have opportunities, but these are really disasters or crises that you want to be prepared for. So the SO strategy is called Maxi. Maxi, why? Because it's strengths and opportunities. Both of those are maximum things that you can do. So for example, how can high brand quality, if that's in your strengths, how can it help your organization launch new products? If you have a good brand, then you have an opportunity to come up with something new. The WO strategies, here what you're doing is launching strategies or programs to offset your weaknesses. So for example, if you have a low quality of products, how can you improve them to enter new markets? Or how can you, if you don't like, a lot of you said is that they have a limited menu. Well, what about if we increase our menu to be able to go into different countries? The ST strategy here is using our strengths to mitigate any crises or threats. So for example, can we use our strong reputation? If we have a PR crisis, what can we do? Or if media attacks us, what can we do? The last one is called a defensive strategy. And this is how can I strengthen my weaknesses so I can avoid any threats from outside? So for example, Do I really need to increase my cash flow to avoid a big downward trend in the economy? And this was really important in the last 2 years. So in the last 2 years with Corona, COVID, what happened to a lot of companies? They went out of business. And they went out of business because they didn't have enough cash to sustain them. And I'll give you an example from our company. Our company, Merck, suffered greatly from the past 2 years because what is the first budget that goes from companies when they need to cut costs? What is the first thing that they cut out? Any guesses? No, before payroll. They leave payroll until the end. They do cut payroll, but the first thing they cut is things that they consider as unnecessary. Like what? I'll give you a hint. It has to do something with training. Yeah, so marketing is good, but training budget. No training for 2 years. So training companies really suffered, and a lot of them just went bankrupt. But we were able to survive because of our financial strength and that we did have some financial reserves. Okay, very good. Excellent. All right, so this is what you would do with McDonald's. So in McDonald's, what you would do is you would list down all your strengths. So you put them here. So strengths, for example, we said brand, we said for example, they have very low prices. I know some of you said high prices, but actually it's considered low prices. So you would do that. You would list all of your strengths, and then you would go ahead and list all of your weaknesses. So for example, high turnover, maybe it's junk food. And then you would look at all the opportunities you've identified and all of the threats you've identified. And then what you want is you want to fill this in. So let's do an example. So here's an example. I haven't put in all strengths and weaknesses, but some of them. For example, I put in S1, strength 1, brand, S3, price, meaning that we offer actually pretty good prices. And then the weaknesses, I put in things like we have high turnover, we're unhealthy, we really have high training costs. And opportunities, I put maybe we can start offering healthy food, maybe we can go into new markets. And then the threats that I put, we have a threat from maybe negative media, maybe something that impacts our reputation, new laws, a health craze, maybe now people suddenly wake up and they say no more junk food. Or actually politics can actually hurt us quite a bit. So if we go to one of our threats, laws, for example. So I've highlighted law. So let's say that a new law might come out that says no more junk food. We're becoming a very unhealthy. So the United States of America, for example, has a very big problem with obesity, with people gaining weight. And that causes a lot of expenses on healthcare. So what are some of the things that we can use to make sure that or to try to minimize the chance that a bad law comes and shuts us down? And I've highlighted finances here. So McDonald's has a lot of cash. Is there anything that they can do this is called an ST strategy in TOWS? Anything that you can think of? Lobbying, very good. Okay, excellent. Sayed said lobbying. So this is exactly what they do. So to minimize threat of new laws, they have a huge government PR department. And all this department does is lobby. And what lobby means is it talks to politicians, it talks to government agencies, it hires ex-politicians. So for example, if you've ever wondered what previous presidents of the United States do, somebody like Bill Clinton, for example, he gets hired as a consultant for $10,000 an hour. And they tell him, go talk to your friends in Washington and try to find out if there's a new law that's coming out and tell them how great McDonald's is. Okay, excellent, very good. So that is just one. So imagine if we had taken all of the threats, we had identified 10 threats. The TOWS analysis is actually can be quite detailed. So let's take another one. Let's take a threat of our reputation. And this can be a weakness that can impact our reputation is high turnover. And another weakness that we have is employee loyalty. So what can we do here? So this is a WT strategy. This goes into over here. So, well, I showed you the answer already, so that's fine. Let's talk about the answer. So one of the things that we could do here is our reputation might be really impacted. So what we could do is we could increase our wages for employees, not for everyone, because then that would cause us to increase our prices, but for employees who stay, for example, more than 1 year. So one of the things that McDonald's could do could say, if you stay for a year, you get a bonus, or there is actually a career path. And there you could impact all those different things of employee loyalty, turnover, and maybe even training costs. So let's take a more practical example. So the threat of negative media. Now, a lot of large companies, they suffer from rumors that are not true, but also from things that are true too. Has anybody seen a negative media campaign against McDonald's? Anyone can type out something. Maybe you've seen a TikTok, a video, maybe you've seen a rumor on WhatsApp, or actually a movie. So there was actually a movie done about McDonald's. So if you go to McDonald's, you probably, I know that they've had this in different countries, but I'm not sure if they've had it anymore because I haven't gone to McDonald's in a very long time. But they had an offer called Supersize, where if you're living in Saudi Arabia, for example, and you order something and they say, sir, would you pay 5 riyals more and then we can supersize your meal? They'll give you huge fries and a huge Coke. All right, so that was a marketing campaign that was done. Well, unfortunately for McDonald's, there was a movie that came out called Super Size Me. So let me ask you then, have you seen this movie before, or have you heard about it? Yes or no? All right, I'll just give you 5 more seconds. Okay, so only one person has seen it, but the majority of you have not. It can be pretty scary if you've seen it. All right, so what I'll do is I'll try to play a video for you, just a few minutes taken from the movie to see what it is about. So in just a summary, this guy that you see here decided to try to eat McDonald's for 30 days. Because, you know, you keep on hearing that McDonald's is unsafe, but he wanted to see, really, is it unsafe? Let me try it for 30 days and find out if it's really unhealthy or not. All right, so I'm going to show you some of the clips of the movie. Depending on the speed, the movie might come out a little bit choppy, but we'll talk a little bit about it and summarize it and talk about the main points.
Kentucky Fried Chicken and a Pizza Hut, a Pizza Hut. Is fast food really that bad for you?
I mean, what would happen if I ate nothing but McDonald's for 30 days straight?
I knew if I was going to do this, I would need some serious medical supervision.
Your blood tests are excellent. Total cholesterol of 168 is superb. In terms of the salts in your blood, your kidney function, your liver function, they were all perfect.
It's the first day, and I'm on my way to breakfast. I got my egg McMuffin. That's gonna be the first thing right there. Oh, I love Big Macs too. See, this is probably the first time in a long time that I've actually seen a Big Mac that looks like the picture.
Hello, may I help you?
Yeah, could I get the double quarter pounder with cheese meal? Look at that. Look at that Coke. That barely fits in there. Look how big that French fry is. That thing is like 4 feet tall. Double quarter pounder. That's a lot of food, man. See, now's the time of the meal when you start getting the McStomach ache. Right now, I got some McGas that's rocking. My arm. Are you sweating there? My arms. I feel like I got some McSweats going. My arms got. Oh, man. Walking up the stairs has started to get really difficult. By the time I get to the top, it's really pathetic.
Over the course of my McDiet, I consumed 30 pounds of sugar from their food. That's a pound a day. On top of that, I also took in 12 pounds of fat. In only 30 days of eating nothing but McDonald's, I gained 24.5 pounds. My liver turned to fat, and my cholesterol shot up 65 points. My body fat percentage went from 11 to 18%, still below the national average of 22% for men and 30% for women. I nearly doubled my risk of coronary heart disease, making myself twice as likely to have heart failure. I felt depressed and exhausted most of the time, my mood swung on a dime, and I craved this food more and more when I ate it, and got massive headaches when I didn't. In my final blood test, many of my body functions showed signs of improvement, but the doctors were less than optimistic. Should people eat fast food?
No. You know this. The answer is no.
It certainly needs to be very restricted and balanced with overall a healthy diet.
But unfortunately, you cause some major harm to your heart, your liver, your blood.
I guess the big question is, who do you want to see go first? You or them?
All right, so this movie came out, and basically what is the main message that it's saying? At the end, the person was saying that he increased his heart disease risk, it doubled. There had a lot of problems with health. He got really tired, huge cholesterol problem. And he said it was very difficult to change it. And the problem with McDonald's food, it can be addictive. It's like coffee. If you're a coffee drinker and you stop coffee, you start getting headaches for a while and you really want to go back to coffee. Now, what do you think? Is this movie a threat to McDonald's? Yes or no? All right, I'll give you 5 more seconds. All right, so let me show you. So the majority of you, 70% said yes, some people said no. I think probably the people who said no is like, well, you know, people are still going to eat McDonald's. The problem is that this can really impact them, and you don't want to leave things up to chance. So the idea is then, if this is media reputation, So what can you use in ST to actually come up with something to minimize this risk? Maybe there's something that you can do. Maybe there's nothing you can do and you say, look, I accept this risk. But I'd like you to push your thinking further and to squeeze those brain cells and think about something that McDonald's can do to make sure that media doesn't impact its reputation. Anything you can think of. What would you use from your strengths? Maybe you can come up with another movie. I'm not sure if another movie would work. Is there something that you can do? And this is what a lot of companies do to invest in their reputation. And it's something called SCR. What is SCR? So I'll type it for you. Okay, I'll give you a hint. The first word is social, corporate social responsibility, social corporate responsibility, or corporate social. Absolutely, you're right. All right, or CSR. Okay, very good. Okay, good. So that's what they do, is they invest before negative things come out, because they know negative things are going to come out. And what are some of the, what do you think McDonald's does for their CSR or SCR? Any idea? So one of the biggest things that McDonald's does is it's used its finances and its brand to come up with charities, and it calls them Ronald McDonald's House Charities. So Ahmed was saying voluntary services. They have a lot of volunteers in Ronald McDonald. So Ronald McDonald is the clown at McDonald's. You know, he's the one who tells kids to come, but he also has these houses around the world. And these houses, a lot of them, they house orphans. They're houses for orphans. They have them in 64 countries and regions around the world. So these are for orphans or for families who've been impacted by disaster. And I don't know if you can see from the picture here, but here is Ronald McDonald. And Ala was saying there's a movie called The Founder. Yes, that's absolutely a great movie. I've seen that, and it gives you a very good history of how McDonald's came about. And I actually didn't know a lot about that particular founder. So it's a good movie about the start of McDonald's. All right, so we are at the end of our course. So just quickly about the strategy courses at Merck for 2022. Let me make sure I just clear this. Okay. So we have upcoming courses on design thinking, on the balanced scorecard, on transformational change and strategic leadership. I also give a course on the certified strategist, which talks a lot about these different frameworks and how you can use them. So thank you very much for attending this. Like I said, I will be giving a series of webinars on all these strategic frameworks. So the next webinar is on a Wednesday, not on a Thursday. It's next Wednesday at 2:30 at the same time, and it's about backcasting. And backcasting is a tool that futurologists use. So this is about future strategy. We're not looking at 5 years, but we're looking at 10, 20 years down the line. So thank you very much. I really appreciate you helping me with a lot of answers and coming up with your own answers. And actually, for me, the time flew by. So thank you very much for your engagement, and I hope to see you in future webinars. Thank you.
Merck.com